and welcome to our first episode of 2022 of Food Farm Talk on CFRU 93.3 FM. Today we have all three of our hosts here together, myself, Emily Duncan, Abdul and Paul Smith in a virtual chat on Zoom. So it's great to be in conversation with you guys today to talk about a little bit of a year in review of the hot topics that happened in the food and agricultural sector over 2021.
Thank you, Emily, for the brief introduction. I think it's really great that we are together again to bring you another episode of Food Farm Talk. It's been a long time that we've had it. There are two of us having an episode together. And 2021, of course, wasn't one of our busiest years in terms of episodes because COVID restrictions and a whole lot of other things, we were not really able to bring so many episodes. But it's really good. We are in 2022, and let's see what the year has got for us. So,
yeah, it's great to join the two of you. It's like a little reunion here,
right? Yeah,
virtual, exactly. But a reunion nonetheless, right? It's fun.
Definitely. And so today we thought we'd take a zoom out and look at some of the global events that took place. And then as we go through the show, zoom in a little bit, talk about some national things, some provincial things, and then some food and farm events that are important to the local Guelph community. So just to kick us off and get started, one thing that we did want to mention was the United Nations Food System Summit was held in September 2021. And this was really exciting because this is the first time in a long time that at that international level, there's been the leaders of the world have gotten together to really think about how we can impact the world's food systems. And so prior to September, when the summit took place, the prior 18 months before, food system dialogues happened all over the world with different groups of people. And so I was lucky enough to be part of the food systems dialogue that focused on youth perspectives that was brought together by the Arrow Food Institute, McGill University, and University of British Columbia. And it was a really great time to get together virtually with students all across Canada and youth leaders in our food system to talk about some of the actions that we need to do to transform the way that the world produces, consumes, and even thinks about food.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Emily. And just like Emily, I had opportunity to participate in a couple of these food systems dialogue. And for me, when regards to the food system summit, I think 2021 was really great. As Emily mentioned, it's been a long time that we've had like global leaders, talking about food, and the food system summit actually provided the opportunity to, bring the conversations about food, in circles that probably people usually will not talk about it. And one of the things that actually stood out for me was actually the food systems, the dialogues, right? Even though the actual program was in September, right? September 2021, but throughout the year, starting in January, there were dialogues happening all over the world. And we had the opportunity to attend one in Canada here. I did also have opportunity to attend another one that was very Africa focused, right? So, but just seeing conversations happening in, spaces that, in the past were very isolated spaces. People have their own conversations about food, but in their own, chambers. But the Food System Summit actually, brought all these conversations together into one platform, which is really great, right? So I don't know what exactly came out of it, but if for nothing at all, but just by the conversations happening, I think it was really good to see that kind of traction around food.
Sure, I totally agree. And I think one of the expected outcomes that is supposed to happen out of the Food System Summit is that the creation of essentially an IPCC for food. And so when I say IPCC, I'm referring to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So this is at that international level, bringing together scientists and leaders to think about climate change, but and so getting an organization similar to that together to think about our food system. But this has always caused a lot of controversy, as there is a bit of a power struggle between the global north and global south of who gets to sit on these things, who gets to make decisions around them for the food system. And we know that food systems are so unique across the globe and so localized as well. So having this large high-level body at the international level, is it something that's really going to make a difference? I think that it remains to be seen, and I think it's something that's in the works post the UN Food System Summit.
Well, that's a good segue to the other big event in Glasgow, the Convention of the Parties of the Convention on Climate Change, which obviously brought a lot of attention to climate change mitigation in particular, and our federal government was very focused on that for much of the year as well, and during the election as well. And so, and there were a number of things related to agriculture specifically, climate change. Their new, just at the tail end of 2020, they had a new climate plan, revised climate plan, and agriculture featured more prominently than in previous version. And then in their budget in March, there's some new funding commitments for sort of nature-based solutions, as they call them, for agriculture, and also commitment around fertilizer use, which generated some controversy over the year to reduce the emissions related to fertilizer use by 30%, I think by 2030, or is it? Anyway, and so that generated some controversy through the year too, as the Fertilizer Canada did a little quote unquote study showing that it would be, a lot would be very challenging, but there's a little back and forth on that. But there are some new funding programs that are accepted applications, and so we're waiting for some results to see who will be doing what. So lots of new potential for on-farm climate action, like more cover crops, reduced nitrogen fertilizer use, and a couple of other items. So those are some of the bigger picture things at the national scale.
Sorry, I just clicked unmute at just the wrong time, and that's my dog, who only barks when I'm on Zoom. So thanks for that introduction, Paul, to some of the new policy for agriculture around climate change. And something else that came out is what they decided to call the Guelph Statement, which I think is really awesome, being that we're located in Guelph. But this is a vision to 2028, and it's a statement that all the provinces and territories signed on to. And it really recognizes Canada as a world leader in sustainable agriculture. And through the Guelph Statement, it's essentially comprised of 5 priority areas, which the first being tackling climate change and environmental protection. The second being continuing to invest in science, research, and in innovation within agriculture to address challenges and opportunities. The third looks at Canadian businesses to meet the needs of interconnected domestic and global marketplaces. Fourth, it continues to build our sector capacity and continue to grow agri-food products. And finally, to enhance resiliency by anticipating, mitigating, and responding to risks through business risk management programs. So I think this Guelph Statement is really a key piece of policy that gives us that vision to 2028 and is guided by principles of sustainable agriculture, of enhancing our sector so that we can compete globally, and collaborating with with stakeholders while at the same time supporting producers. So I
And the
think,
other shoe on that will drop in July when they come up with a more detailed framework based on the Guelph Statement.
yeah, exactly. There's more to come with this. So it's
Mhm.
exciting that all the provinces and territories have accepted kind of the beginning guiding principles and key priority areas. And it'll be exciting to see in 2022 what some of the key policies that actually come out of that are.
Yeah, I think like talking about this Guelph Statement, for me, looking at it, what really caught my attention is mostly with regards to, situating climate change and resilience with regards in the discussion of food and ag. And I when I speak about this, I usually try to connect it to like the conversations that were happening. And like I mentioned earlier, part of what we were anticipating to get from the UN Food Summit was actually to actually drive conversations around food. And I remember following the speech that was given at Glasgow by the UN envoy for the, Food Summit, Agnes Kalibata, and she categorically called on world leaders to try to situate food when in discussions of climate change, because food is always it's a central piece when we talk about climate mitigation. So to see that kind of conversations at a global level, but to see some attention and practical steps being taken at the national level in Canada and across all provinces, I think it's a very interesting, development. And as we mentioned, we look to see the direction this one will take in terms of going forward. But these are really good steps that we are seeing, at least in Canada, and probably will help make Canada, put Canada on the map in terms of being a global leader, in terms of climate mitigation, of course, and in terms of agri-food system resilience.
Exactly. And looking back on the year in review, we see that, agricultural producers have been severely impacted by climate change in 2021. I think some of the events that come to mind are the devastating floods that happened in BC. Those made headlines in terms of, we're seeing climate change disrupt supply chains, having train routes, roads completely wiped out by flooding, which has huge effects on our food system. But also at the same time, these are people's businesses and livelihoods. Farmers were out there trying to rescue cattle that were drowning in the flood. So I think when these kind of devastating effects happened of climate change and people start to see what will be the impacts on our food system, we know that we need to be implementing these policies and changes as fast as possible at the international, national, and local level.
Yeah, and the other extreme is not enough water. So the drought on the prairies and northwestern Ontario as well was quite devastating, before the floods in British Columbia. So we got both precipitation and temperature involved. And so there was a lot of relief needed, first for the prairie farmers and northwestern Ontario, particularly the livestock sector. So the federal and provincial governments both anteed up relief for those producers. And then an interesting development is this Hay West thing, that it's a bit of a reboot of an initiative back, I don't know, it might be a decade ago when Ontario and Eastern Canada sent rail shipments of hay to livestock producers in Western Canada because they lacked their own local source because of the drought. So the federal government, Madame Bibeau, allocated money for that, and they kind of teamed up with the Canadian Federation of Agriculture, which is kind of interesting. So that's a good combination of the major farm organization and the federal department. So
yeah, it was great to see that. And, that's what those organizations are there for, for farmers to be able to support farmers in these times when, climate and weather are doing a lot of unpredictable things and having dire consequences for farmers in different places.
Yeah, I think that idea of the hay west is like really great, because we know that all over the world, and of course in Canada, we've seen the effects in 2021 of what climate can actually do, especially with what we saw in British Columbia. But to see farmers, supporting other farmers, in a time of need, right? That doesn't like always happen, especially in some contexts, because sometimes when people look at farmers, like we do sometimes see them as very competitive, industry. But to have that idea where the government is working together with local organizations, where we see farmers in one region providing support for like farmers in another region. And I think like going forward, if the food system is going to be resilient, we definitely have to like adopt those kind of initiatives, because it's not always all the time that people will have the capacity to become resilient by themselves. Sometimes you need some kind of external support. So I think that's an interesting development that we need to like always talk about when we look at like climate resilience.
An interesting sideline to that too is the combination of one of our first female ministers of agriculture at the federal level, Marie-Claude Bibeau, and the first female president of the Canadian Federation of Agriculture, Mary Robinson. So, and I think they've got a bit of a chummy thing going on between them, and it is indicative of real big change in agriculture, the role of women rising to leadership positions. So we even got we have a female president of the Ontario Federation of Agriculture as well. So I think there's a bit of a sea change happening in that regard as well. And a very interesting development on that front in terms of equity was September 30th, the first National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. All of major farm groups put out some sort of statement regarding reconciliation, and it was kind of, you don't always expect that from farm groups who are more interested. They're promoting producers' interests and so on, but to recognize something like that, which is a bit of another sea change in terms of the national consciousness. So that was another sort of on the equity front.
Yeah, I think that's definitely been a step in the right direction. And there's been a lot of conversations happening about how the agriculture sector really needs to step up its game on equity, diversity, and inclusion. And seeing women in those leadership roles is so promising. Seeing farmers paying attention to, the need to address truth and reconciliation. And I know, Abdul, you published an opinion piece in the Globe and Mail talking about the need for increased diversity within Canada's agriculture sector.
Yeah, it was a good piece.
Yeah, I think that just really ties into, that piece. I think that was somewhere in May 2021 that I wrote that piece on diversity. But the crux of that piece was just to, propel conversations, about, increasing the diversity in Canadian agriculture industry, and then creating opportunities for diverse people, right, to be able to access the industry and to make like diverse people really welcome, be it, BIPOC or Indigenous people, like women, groups that originally wouldn't have opportunity or may feel unwelcome in Canadian ag industry. And it's really interesting, Paul, you mentioned about, we have women leaders, and I think that was in I don't know whether it's 2021 or 2020, Emily. We did have an episode that was specifically on this issue about, Canadian ag, the change in the leadership landscape with SF having, a female minister and a female, president of, Federation of Agriculture. And at that point in time, I remember us saying that we are looking forward to seeing how, the leadership will unfold in the next coming months and years. And I think what we are seeing so far has been great. At least that's from my personal, assessment of what we are seeing. But we are seeing some kind of, movement, and we are seeing some kind of progress under those leaderships. And just goes to speak to, the idea that sometimes when you diversify certain things, it does bring some strength.
Exactly.
Yeah, shifting to kind of a provincial scale, it's interesting that with the cost of housing being kind of front page item, and lots of people advocating for more building on farmland, in fact. So farmland protection has been in the news, and all of the major farm organizations are solidly behind farmland protection. In fact, they a number of them want the greenbelt protection for agriculture extended across the entire province. So that's quite at odds with what the provincial government has in mind in terms of opening up more land for housing and development. But so it's quite a and then they have the minister's zoning orders that are, you know, preempt local planning rules around things like farmland protection. So it's been a very controversial year regarding that. But and we'll see what happens in the coming year on that too, because I think there, of course, we'll have a provincial election in the middle of that, so it might become an issue because the highway construction, particularly the Bradford bypass, has a lot of implications for farmland. You know, that's potential impact on the Holland Marsh there, which is where a lot of our carrots and onions and other vegetables are produced for the market.
Yeah, that has definitely been something that's been a big headline and will continue to be a big headline, I think, up until and beyond the provincial election, is that Highway 413 is would take up several thousands of acres of farmland and prime farmland and turn it into another highway for the GTA traffic. So I think it's a huge issue, and it's one issue that our actual local MPP, Mike Schreiner, has been a strong advocate for farmland protection and a strong advocate against the plan to build Highway 413 as well. So we have some advocacy from our local elected leaders on that topic.
Yeah, and there's actually a new group that's formed that wants to add to the Greenbelt with the Periscott Marine and Ag lands in the south end of Guelph and beyond into Waterloo region. So there's a new coalition formed of that. Because paradoxically, the provincial government also consulted on growing the Greenbelt. So what to add to the Greenbelt at the same time as talking about building more housing and freeing up land for development. So.
Yeah, I think, you know, that looks like a very complex issue, and these are things, you know, governments face every day in terms of, you know, making trade-offs between, you know, you want to protect, you know, land, you want to also provide housing, and then ease traffic, and like these are tough decisions government make. But as we are seeing in Ontario, which is good, is the fact that it's sometimes really not good to just allow governments to make decisions without, you know, local participation. So seeing this, you know, on the ground, like mobilization, to make sure that when things like that happen, but they happen in the interest of the environment, I think these are really like good developments. And as we have seen, you know, housing prices are going up like everywhere, especially, you know, especially around, you know, Guelph and, you know, areas in, you know, Ontario. So it's I think, like as I mentioned, it's quite complex for governments, but I think at the end, the most important thing is like making like decisions that that doesn't really undermine the environment. And then of course, that is also in the interest of people.
Why don't we switch to the local level now? We got about 5 minutes left here. I know, Emily, you had some thoughts about you're involved in the Food Futures effort in here in Guelph, Wellington.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's really exciting that our Food Future has started a new initiative that I will hope to be a legacy of the $10 million project to create a circular food economy of Guelph. And it's started a roundtable, the Food System Resiliency Roundtable, which I happen to sit on along with other interested food and agricultural people. I don't quite know how to say it. Everybody's a foodie there, and we all work in different areas. Some people with community health, some people with their own food businesses, some people like me who are researchers. So a real diverse group of people in Guelph who are coming together and talking about how can we make our local Guelph Wellington food system more resilient. And so kind of jumping off the last point and thinking about the housing crisis that's definitely hit Guelph, people are struggling to afford homes and to pay rents. And in turn, this is leading to, in addition, I should say, to the COVID-19 pandemic, this is leading to extremely high rates of food insecurity. And we're finding those rates growing in our community. So part of the Food Resiliency Roundtable is to address that growing issue in our community.
Yeah, it's really, I think it's really good to see, like I said, something happening in Guelph, because of course, Guelph is kind of a hub of, food because of the university. And I think it's probably even long overdue that, and probably a roundtable like that hasn't been, hasn't been established long time ago. And because we've seen in other places where we have like agriculture kitchen tables, we have like food policy councils, which kind of like mirrors this kind of, this kind of roundtable. So to see something like that, being born out of our food futures, I think it's a plus. And I think it's really great to see that local mobilization. I just hope that we'll be able to, build on that mobilization, right? In order to make the food system more resilient, because as you mentioned, housing prices have hit Guelph really high, and we are seeing a lot of, local people struggling to access food in Guelph. And there are a lot of good organizations like SEED that have been, helping to promote food security in Guelph over the years. But to see everybody with that shared interest coming together is a good first step.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned the seed, Abdul, because through the Food Resiliency Roundtable, I learned about this really great new program that they're offering that I'd like to highlight. It's that, I always used to love to buy my vegetables at the markets that they had because they focus on local producers, they have great prices, and also sliding scale prices for people in our community who might be struggling. But since COVID-19, they've had to shut down their markets. But now they're offering a new service called Groceries by the Seed. And so you can order your groceries online, and it's not just fruits and vegetables. They have pantry items, dairy, proteins, kind of a whole grocery thing. And the prices, I think, are really good. And what happens is that for every person who buys their groceries from the Seed full price, they're able to offer a discount to those in our community who are suffering from food insecurity to buy their groceries. And currently there's a wait list to receive those discounted groceries, and the wait list is over 500 people. So we really need to be spreading the word about this, and people who can afford to buy full price groceries, this is a great place to buy your groceries from, and they deliver for free. So you don't have to go out into the crowds in stores during the Omicron wave, which is really convenient.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we've gone from global to national to provincial to local, and we're kind of at our end of time here. So
yeah. It's been great to chat with both of you.
Yeah, I think it's really great to chat again, and I do hope that this will be a springboard to having more episodes. In 2022, I know 2021 was really dull for all of us, but we do hope that 2022 we'll be able to bring you more episodes. But just to take the opportunity to thank CFRU and to thank all our listeners for staying with us even within this challenging times. So it's great to have you, and we are happy to bring you this episode. We look forward to interacting with you again in the next few weeks and the next few months in 2022. Thank you for listening to Food Farm Talk, and we do hope that you enjoyed this episode. Have a great week and the very best of 2022. Thank you.